Whoosh! The black airflow, like an enraged serpent, coiled around Garuda's body, emitting a low, rumbling roar that spread out as if it were a tangible sound wave, shaking the very space around him. Boom! Garuda, completely engulfed in black, stood firmly on the ground like a demon god, radiating overwhelming might at this moment. The strength of his physical body alone was clearly enough to rival a perfect ninth-grade expert, Chen. Observing Garuda's immense presence, couldn't help but grow serious. The sheer strength of Garuda's body seemed to surpass anyone he had encountered among his peers over the years. Had it not been for the refining and progress of his dragon phoenix body during the Heavenly River baptism, Chen suspected he wouldn't stand a chance in a contest of physical strength. Boom! Just as Chen tensed, Garuda's eyes suddenly flared with a surge of murderous intent. Without hesitation, his foot stomped down, shaking the ground beneath him. In a bizarre twist, his body vanished into thin air. Buzz! Brilliant golden light erupted from Chen's body. Unfazed by Garuda's sudden disappearance, he clenched his fist tightly and hurled a powerful punch into the empty space to his right. His arm shot forward, with the true dragon and phoenix spiraling around it, their roars filling the air. The sound of dragon and phoenix calls ringing out as they carried enough force to shatter mountains. Chen's fist struck out. A blurry black shadow appeared in the previously empty space, also throwing a punch, and instantly, a torrent of black light exploded from its fist. Boom! The two fists, each imbued with terrifying power, collided like meteors streaking across the sky. Visible ripples of shock waves instantly erupted. The space around them vibrated violently, twisting, with cracks slowly beginning to spread. The tremendous backlash surged like a tsunami, causing both Chen and Garuda to stagger and get blasted back several thousand meters. Whoosh! But, just as their bodies steadied, they once again shot forward like bolts of lightning. Bang! Bang! On the Golden Plaza, two ghostly figures flickered constantly, each one clashing with the other in a brutal exchange of fists and kicks. This moment, neither of them was using much spiritual power. They were relying entirely on the sheer strength of their bodies to collide head-on. However, even without utilizing much spiritual energy, the force of their clashes was enough to make a perfect ninth-grade expert's face turn pale. Many perfect ninth-grade experts. The physical prowess of these two was almost monstrous in just a few dozen breaths. Chen and Garuda had exchanged hundreds of blows. Every attack was ruthless and sharp, targeting each other's vital points. Boom! Another terrifying strike rang out, making one's heart race in fear. The two figures were sent flying back, their feet scraping along the golden ground, leaving long streaks. Both of them were now in tatters, their sleeves were torn, and their arms bore deep gashes from the brutal recoil of their strikes. But given their incredible physical strength, it was clear that these wounds were nothing serious. Still, their breathing was slightly heavier, a sign that the intensity of their previous exchanges had required immense mental focus. Neither dared to relax in the face of an opponent of this caliber. Garuda's eyes darkened as he locked onto Chen. His hand brushed across his arm, instantly healing the bloodstains. And he spoke coldly. No wonder even Xiaoyu fell to your hands. You do have some skill. After their exchange, he had completely stopped underestimating Chen. The young man before him could definitely become his greatest enemy. The only other time he had felt such a sense of danger was when he fought Zhu Yan. Chen's expression remained indifferent, golden light radiating from his body. The spirit of the true dragon and phoenix hovered protectively around him, glaring at Garuda with intense focus. Garuda sneered at the sight. No matter how impressive you are, there will only be one survivor here today, and it won't be you. Boom! The moment his last word fell, he suddenly thrust his fist forward. The overwhelming spiritual energy surged beneath his fist, rapidly gathering into a blinding light, transforming into a massive fist light that shot forward like a black ferocious beast, sweeping across the air at lightning speed, engulfing Chen. This moment, Garuda finally began to use his spiritual energy, clearly signaling that he no longer intended to drag out the battle. The black fist light spread across his vision. Chen's gaze slightly tightened as the space behind him trembled, revealing the supreme sea, its waters churning and transforming into endless spiritual energy that surged outward. Chen lightly pushed with both palms, and instantly, a vast wave of spiritual energy erupted, forming a massive barrier in front of him. On that barrier, the spirits of the true dragon and phoenix swirled, immediately activating its defensive power to the extreme. Boom! The ferocious black fist light slammed into the spiritual barrier, causing only a slight tremor that it didn't break through. However, Chen did not show any signs of relief, for he knew this was just the beginning of the assault. Boom! Boom! Just as Chen's thoughts flickered, a thunderous roar filled the space. As if an endless series of muffled thunderclaps erupted, Chen lifted his head slightly and saw countless black meteors plummeting from the sky. These meteors were all transformed from fist light. Their majestic momentum seemed capable of destroying any obstacle in their path. Bang! Bang! The meteors crashed down, raining heavily upon the massive spiritual barrier. Violent ripples exploded from the barrier, becoming more intense. Yet, with the spirits of the true dragon and phoenix reinforcing the barrier, the defense remained remarkably strong, by the time the last meteor struck. Although the barrier was cracked and on the verge of shattering, it still held firm in front of Chen. However, at that moment, Chen's heart skipped a beat. Sensing an intense feeling of danger, he immediately looked up and saw Garuda standing atop a towering golden pillar. At this moment, Garuda's hands formed a strange seal. Around him, a vast ocean of spiritual energy surged, thick and dark like a black sea, giving off an oppressive aura. Garuda stared at Chen with a mocking look, then began to stir his hands to at once. The black ocean of spiritual energy churned, as if something terrifying was being brewed within it. A dreadful fluctuation emanated from the ocean. Chen's expression turned grim. "I know you're troublesome, but don't think those previous attacks were meant to threaten you," Garuda said with a faint smile. He extended his finger and pointed heavily at the black ocean. "Sacred demon divine ability, sacred demon hand." Boom. The black ocean was torn open. Countless black gases shot up into the sky, and Chen's face changed as he saw a massive black hand, seemingly emerging from the nine nether, stretch out from the Black Sea, as though it was traversing space, descending upon him. The black giant hand seemed to cover all space, above, below, front, and behind, leaving Chen with nowhere to escape. Chen's heart trembled. This move, this momentum, was certainly a true divine ability. He hadn't expected that Garuda had also mastered a divine ability. The world turned dark. Chen's face grew increasingly solemn. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes slightly, and then suddenly opened them. His eyes turned a terrifying red, and a murderous aura erupted from within him. Under the giant hand that seemed to block out the sun, Chen stood tall, unwavering. His seemingly frail body erupted with a vast, self-sacrificial aura, as if he were willing to become a demon in exchange for power. Sensing the sudden change in Chen's aura, Garuda's pupils constricted. He saw Chen take a half-step back, his body coiled like a bow. Then his right fist was thrown out with simple, yet powerful force. At the same time, a low, rumbling voice reverberated across the plaza. "Body sacrifice, demon fist." Chen's feet struck the earth, and his body shot forward. Under the enormous hand that blocked the sky, he appeared as small as an ant. Yet, without fear, he charged forward, finally swinging his fist to meet the giant hand with a tremendous impact. Boom! In the moment of the explosion, it felt as if both the heavens and space had fallen silent, the world devoid of sound. However, within this silence, the very point of collision in space seemed to tear apart, creating massive space cracks. These cracks, like dragon claws, emitted a terrifying energy that made one's heart race. Boom! Even within this silent clash, the space seemed to vibrate, and then, the massive hand that blotted out the sky trembled violently. The cracks quietly spread, and, with a final roar, it shattered into pieces. The instant the giant hand exploded, Chen was struck with immense force. His body shot backward and slammed into the golden pillars, shattering them into clouds of golden dust. In the distance, Garuda didn't retreat. But the pillar beneath his feet also crumbled into powder. His face darkened, filled with grim determination. Golden dust swirled in the air. Chen steadied himself, meeting Garuda's gaze. Both their lips were tinged with a faint red trace of blood. The clash of divine abilities clearly left both of them with a backlash injury. Garuda's eyes darkened. This was the first time he had used the sacred demon hand, yet it had failed to crush his opponent effortlessly. Chen furrowed his brow. In battles with peers, his body-sacrifice demon fist had always been invincible, yet it had been blocked this time. Truly a formidable foe. At that moment, both of them shared the same thought. In the next instant, Garuda's hand held a black stone seal. Meanwhile, Chen held a green feather fan. As soon as the black stone seal appeared in Garuda's hand, it was as if the world itself resounded with the sound of crashing waves. Soon after, black seawater surged forth from it, rapidly turning the surrounding space into a vast black ocean. Garuda stood atop the sea, his cold eyes locked on Chen. I didn't expect that to deal with you. I'd have to summon the overturning sea seal. Chen. You truly are something. Garuda's voice was filled with cold malice. The overturning sea seal was a genuine low-tier sacred artifact. It had been acquired at great cost by their palace master and entrusted to him specifically for the mission. With Garuda's power, coupled with the seal's strength, though he couldn't defeat a true Earth Supreme, he could easily obliterate any opponent below that level. After all, the power of a sacred artifact far surpassed that of mere divine artifacts or quasi-sacred items. A low-tier sacred artifact was so rare and powerful that even some Earth Supremes might not possess one. A low-tier sacred artifact, huh? Chen lifted his head, eyes filled with surprise as he looked at the overwhelming black ocean. The power it contained made his heart race. It seemed that Garuda had truly come prepared. But unfortunately, with just a low-tier sacred artifact, it probably wouldn't be enough to turn the tide of this battle. Because Chen had a low-tier sacred artifact too. Chen gave Garuda a faint smile, then gripped the green feather fan. Behind him, the supreme sea seemed to manifest, with towering waves surging. Spiritual energy poured into the fan in his hand. Buzz. As spiritual energy flowed into it, the green fan began to hum, rapidly expanding until it became a large green banana fan about 10 feet wide. On its surface, complex ancient patterns were engraved, each one brimming with immense spiritual power. Wind God Fan. Chen held the green fan and swung it with force. Instantly, a violent green windstorm swept through the air. The wind was so tangible it seemed to form countless storms, surrounding Chen within a radius of thousands of feet. The storms rampaged like dragons, twisting and shattering the space itself. In an instant, Chen's surroundings were transformed into a world of violent windstorms. Anyone entering would be torn apart by the merciless onslaught. A green windstorm rose beneath Chen's feet, lifting him into the sky, where he stood parallel to Garuda. He smiled faintly and gently waved the green fan. Sacred artifact. How coincidental. I have one too. Garuda's expression darkened at this moment as he fixed his gaze on the Xun'er banana fan in Chen's hand. Clearly, he hadn't anticipated that his opponent would also produce a low-grade sacred artifact. Chen's trump cards were more than he had expected. Let's see whose sacred artifact is stronger. Garuda sneered coldly. At this point, there was no other choice. One of them had to die, because neither would give up their immortal golden body. Since that was the case, Garuda decided to use Chen's corpse as the stepping stone to forge his own immortal golden body. Destroying God's tide. Garuda's stone seal erupted with a 1,000-foot beam of black light as he roared. The black ocean began to churn violently. A massive black wave surged forward, crashing down with a destructive force that seemed to crush space itself, engulfing Chen. The black wave blotted out the sky, its shadow covering tens of thousands of feet, its terror beyond measure, fueled by the power of the sacred artifact. Garuda's attack now surpassed the limits of the 9th grade perfection. The black wave rolled toward Chen, but he remained calm. With a swift flick of his hand, he waved the Xun'er banana fan. Wind God Vortex. Whoosh! A fierce gale swept through the air as a series of green tornadoes gathered, eventually forming a massive storm of wind. From afar, it appeared like a giant green dragon. Boom! The tornado storm swept through, directly colliding with the incoming black wave. In that instant, the entire world seemed to tremble. Crash! The black wave shattered, turning into a torrential downpour of black rain, while the green storm dispersed like countless razor-sharp blades, slicing through the air. The heavy rain poured down on Chen's area, while the green wind blades passed through the void, surrounding Garuda. The black raindrops hit the ground, corroding the once immovable golden floor, leaving deep, pitted holes. The corrosive power was so intense that even a ninth-grade perfection expert would likely be reduced to nothing but bones if they were hit. Meanwhile, the green wind blades were terrifyingly sharp, leaving faint traces in the space they passed through, almost silent but deadly. These attacks, powered by sacred artifacts, clearly possessed unimaginable destructive power. Therefore, neither Chen nor Garuda dared to relax for a moment. Each summoned their protective barriers. Chen summoned the furious green winds around him, deflecting the black raindrops, while Garuda created a shield of black water to absorb the wind blades and corrosion. Amid the chaotic downpour and wind blades, Chen and Garuda locked eyes from a distance. Their gazes were filled with a deadly resolve. They both knew each other's power. Since they were now sworn enemies, one of them had to be eradicated to prevent future trouble. Boom! Without hesitation, both activated their sacred artifacts simultaneously, pouring immense spiritual energy into them. In an instant, the heavens and earth seemed to collapse. The space around them turned into a battlefield of green wind and black water. Boom! The towering black sea surged forth like a deep-sea serpent, only to be torn apart by the oncoming green storm. The violent clashes played out endlessly, and such a level of power would have made even an Upper Earth Supreme tremble. Boom! Another violent clash shook the air above the Golden Plaza. The black storm and furious winds howled past, causing both Chen and Garuda to stagger back, clearly affected by the impact. Their faces paled slightly. After all, using sacred artifacts demanded immense spiritual energy. During the earlier exchanges, they had almost completely relied on supreme spiritual liquid to support them. In just the past few minutes, they had each burned through millions of supreme spiritual liquid. There was no other choice. They weren't true Earth Supremes, unable to directly draw endless spiritual energy from the world. Thus, they had no choice but to rely on the supreme spiritual liquid. Of course, they could rely on their own spiritual energy, but in a battle of this magnitude, their spiritual energy was incredibly precious. They all knew that once someone's spiritual energy began to deplete, they would inevitably fall to the disadvantage. The power of the sacred artifacts was terrifying, but for them at this moment, the consumption was almost too much to bear. If this continued, they feared they would be completely drained. Both Chen and Garuda's gazes flickered slightly at this moment. Garuda was clearly unwilling that he had originally taken out the ocean-overturning seal, intending to use its terrifying power to directly crush and eliminate Chen. However, he had not expected that Chen also possessed a sacred artifact of the same level. As a result, the originally envisioned crushing battle had turned into a stalemate, but continuing to fight like this was clearly not a solution. What if their spiritual energy ran dry? Although Chen might also fall into that situation, Garuda was not the type to put all his hopes on such a vague possibility. Thus, he had to end this battle before his own fighting strength dwindled. Garuda was decisive. Once he made up his mind, he didn't hesitate. With a wave of his sleeve, the black stone seal vanished from his hand at the same time. Chen also put away the wind god fan. The raging storm that had enveloped the space gradually began to subside. The two of them stood atop golden pillars, eyes locking, the tension almost palpable, as murderous intent surged with such intensity that it felt almost tangible. However, in the next moment, both of them almost simultaneously closed their eyes and a monstrous black light erupted from Garuda's body, sweeping outward. The black light gathered behind him, slowly condensing into a massive shadow of light. The black shadow sat cross-legged in the void behind him, and a black solar disk slowly rotated above its head. As the black shadow appeared, a surge of golden light shot out from another direction, Behind Mu Chen, a brilliant golden figure also began to take shape. The two shadows were almost identical, one black and one golden. One was as deep and mysterious as a black hole, while the other shone like a true sun, exuding immense power. Both of their eyes snapped open, and they simultaneously formed the same seal. Their low shouts echoed across the golden plaza. Great Sun, Indestructible Body. The two Great Sun Indestructible bodies faced each other from afar, an atmosphere thick with murderous intent. Above the golden plaza, two massive figures of light formed. The overwhelming spiritual energy surged like a tsunami, sweeping in all directions and causing the space to tremble. At this point, Mu Chen and Garuda had summoned their respective Great Sun Indestructible bodies. They both had a premonition that, no matter how many tricks and trump cards they had, the final victor would be determined by their Great Sun Indestructible bodies. Garuda stood atop the shoulder of the black Great Sun Indestructible body. His cold eyes glared at the golden Dharma body before him, and he slowly spoke. Mu Chen, if you destroy your Great Sun Indestructible body now, I will allow you to leave safely. However, Mu Chen didn't even raise an eyelid in response. Garuda wasn't surprised by Mu Chen's indifference. The killing intent in his eyes grew even more intense. Without hesitation, he said, "Since you're seeking death, I will grant it to you today." As his words fell, Garuda stomped his foot, and suddenly, from within the massive form of the black Great Sun Indestructible body, black solar discs began to rise one by one, before they suddenly shattered. Whoosh, whoosh, the black torrents swept outward from the Great Sun Indestructible body, before converging into countless undulating black currents in the palm of the Great Sun Indestructible body. These dark currents, like enormous black serpents, gave off a terrifying feeling of devouring, as if even the light that touched them would be absorbed. Supreme divine ability, 8 solar demonic pythons. A sudden roar echoed, and countless black dark currents, resembling demonic pythons, shot out like a torrential wave, covering the sky. Their speed was ghostly, able to merge into the void and slip through every crack. An eerie phenomenon beyond imagination that in just the span of a breath. Mu Chen noticed that the entire space had been surrounded by these black dark currents. They emitted a sense of threat, and if he were struck by them, his spiritual energy would likely be devoured. As he turned the 8 suns into such a supreme divine ability, Mu Chen muttered to himself. The supreme divine ability of the Great Sun Indestructible body allowed one to unlock the power of the 9 suns. But how one utilized and created this power depended entirely on one's abilities. Clearly, Garuda's 9 suns' divine art was entirely different from his own. However, Mu Chen's expression remained calm. He formed a seal with one hand, and instantly, boundless golden light erupted from his Great Sun Indestructible body, as golden suns surged forth. 8 suns' heavenly wheel. Mu Chen flicked his finger, and a surge of golden light gathered into a vast radiance. Surrounding his Great Sun Indestructible body were enormous golden light wheels, slowly rotating, emitting an aura of divine mystery. Buzz. As these golden wheels took shape, the black demonic python currents poured down, tearing through space as they passed. Such an attack would instantly devour any ordinary 9th grade expert. However, when the dark currents collided with the golden wheels, the wheels suddenly reversed, and the dark currents, out of control, began to retreat with greater force, colliding with the ones behind them. Hiss, hiss, the dark currents collided, continuously bursting with black light spots, devouring each other and vanishing. The 8 suns' heavenly wheel created by Mu Chen, while lacking extreme offensive power, possessed near-perfect offense and defense. Any attack within its range would be fully reflected in the distance. Garuda looked at the rotating golden wheels, his face darkening. His 8 suns' demonic pythons had devoured countless opponents' spiritual energy in the past, and had been invincible. Yet now, facing Mu Chen's seemingly turtle shell-like defense, they were utterly ineffective. Garuda wasn't too surprised, though. After this battle, he had already realized how troublesome Mu Chen was in terms of difficulty. Mu Chen was probably on par with Zhu Yan, and if he were so easily defeated, Garuda would suspect a trick that Garuda's eyes slightly lowered, since even activating the 8 suns couldn't yield results. It was time to escalate things further. He extended his palm and performed a strange hand seal before sitting cross-legged atop the black, great sun indestructible body's head. 8 black suns rose once more from the limbs, forehead, dantian, and eyes of the great sun indestructible body, each emanating a terrifying destructive power. However, when the 8th black sun appeared, something peculiar happened at the heart of the great sun. Indestructible body that a black seed seemed to sprout, rapidly expanding into the 9th black sun. That Garuda's gaze became unfathomably deep, dark to the point of being unsettling. Opening the 9th sun, this seemed to be the ultimate form of the great sun indestructible body's supreme divine ability. When Chen saw this, his eyes grew solemn, though he wasn't too surprised, given Garuda's talent and power. Unlocking the 9th sun was to be expected. He exhaled deeply, dispelling the golden heavenly wheels around him. Facing Garuda's impending attack, the 8 suns' heavenly wheel would no longer be effective. Only a force of the same level could counter the power of the 9 suns. That Chen closed his eyes slightly and formed a profound hand seal. Immediately, golden suns rose within his own great sun indestructible body. In the blink of an eye, 8 suns appeared. But Chen didn't stop there. Behind him, the supreme sea flickered in and out of existence. Enormous spiritual energy surged, flooding into his great sun indestructible body. That a faint golden light began to appear at the heart of the great sun indestructible body, quickly expanding. After a few breaths, a golden sun slowly rose into the It was the 9th sun once again. Chen opened his eyes and locked gazes with Garuda from afar, but a murderous intent surged in both their eyes, as if it could materialize in the next instant. Both of their hand seals abruptly changed. 9 Yang Divine Art, 9 Sun Devil Abyss. 9 Yang Divine Art, 9 Sun Divine Banner. As the shouts rang out from both of them, endless black light erupted from Garuda's position, transforming into a boundless demonic abyss in the sky. The abyss was pitch black, as though even the heavens and earth would be devoured by it. Its terror was indescribable. The demonic abyss descended, and the plaza below began to crack faintly. On Chen's side, a torrent of golden light surged. Within that golden light, a golden banner took shape, on which were 9 golden suns. That a mysterious aura emanated from it, and even in the face of the abyss's devouring power, it remained unshaken. The power of their attacks, in a sense, was even stronger than the divine abilities they had used previously. The supreme divine ability of the great sun indestructible body was indeed powerful. In my demonic abyss, turn to dust. A savage expression appeared on Garuda's face as he roared. The demonic abyss expanded, aiming to engulf Chen entirely. If Chen were to fall into the abyss, no matter how powerful his abilities, his spiritual energy would be drained, and even his physical body would cease to exist. However, Chen raised his head to gaze at the abyss. Though his face was serious, he was not afraid. He took a deep breath, changed his hand seal, and with a powerful shake, the massive golden banner struck directly at the abyss. Buzz that it was as though golden ripples of light, visible to the naked eye, spread through the void. The golden light seemed to carry a mysterious power that turned all attacks into nothingness as it swept through. Even the terrifying demonic abyss faltered under this strike. The black light scattered, and the overwhelming darkness became faint and illusory. Garuda, noticing the change, narrowed his eyes. The golden banner that Chen had summoned could even nullify the power of his demonic abyss. I want to see how many times you can sweep. Garuda gritted his teeth and unleashed a flood of black light. The demonic abyss aggressively expanded, aiming to devour Chen without hesitation. Swish, swish. The 9 sun golden banner struck again, sending waves of golden ripples that continually made the abyss grow more illusory. Eventually, the golden light expanded to such an extent that it forcefully resisted the advancing abyss, halting its progress entirely. However, at this moment, Chen's expression grew more solemn. The 9 sun golden banner had a unique ability to dissolve any powered. If a typical 9th grade perfection expert had been struck this many times, they would have already been drained of their spiritual energy and reduced to a cripple. Yet, the demonic abyss was still far from dissipating. Boom! Boom! Terrifying shockwaves spread across the sky. The golden banner and the demonic abyss clashed repeatedly, but neither was able to gain the upper hand. Damn it! Garuda glared at the standoff, his expression darkening to the extreme. His face even began to pale, and cold sweat formed on his forehead. It was a sign of immense strain. Of course, Chen, far off in the distance, was in the same situation. Such a clash was an enormous burden for both of them. Yet despite this, neither had been able to secure victory if this deadlock continued. It seemed that both of their spiritual energies would be exhausted before a winner could emerge. This uncertain situation was clearly something Garuda did not want to see. His gaze flickered anxiously, and after a moment, he gritted his teeth, seemingly making a decision. He then raised his head, casting a dark glance at Chen in the distance. Chen, sensing the gaze, felt a slight tremor in his heart, a vague sense of unease creeping in. I didn't expect to be pushed to this point by you. Garuda's gloomy voice spread out, and then his palms suddenly clenched as a small object appeared in his hand, an azure stone carving. The carving resembled a great Buddha sitting in meditation, with a large azure sun behind the Buddha's head. When Chen saw the azure stone carving, a storm of emotions surged within him. His eyes showed clear signs of shock. From that stone carving, he sensed a familiar fluctuation. It was the fluctuation of the great sun indestructible body. That azure stone carving was actually a manifestation of the great sun indestructible body. However, this could not have been cultivated by Garuda, for the aura was completely different. This meant that it was the work of someone else who had cultivated the great sun indestructible body, but failed in the end. Their great sun indestructible body had turned into this stone carving, and it had fallen into Garuda's hands. The azure stone carving landed in Garuda's hands, but in Chen's heart, it stirred a fierce storm. He stared at the carving, his expression unable to conceal his shock. Haha. Curious about what this is? Seeing the rare look of shock on Chen's face, Garuda let out a soft laugh, his eyes gleaming with mockery, like a cat playing with a mouse. Chen furrowed his brow, but did not respond. Garuda seemed unconcerned. He tossed the stone carving up and said, "This object was a gift from the palace master. It said that in the ancient heavenly palace, a prodigious disciple once cultivated the great sun indestructible body, but ultimately failed. The result of their failure turned their body into this stone carving. This object is of no use to others, but for those of us who have cultivated the great sun indestructible body, it is a rare item. As long as we absorb it with our great sun indestructible body, it can temporarily increase the power of the great sun indestructible body." Chen's expression shifted slightly. So this was Garuda's plan all along. Apologies, but it seems the one who will laugh last is me. Garuda smiled at Chen, then without hesitation, threw the stone carving. The giant mouth of the black sun indestructible body below him opened wide and swallowed it whole. Boom! Boom! As the azure stone carving entered the mouth of the great sun indestructible body, its massive body trembled violently. Then, its already enormous body began to expand at a visible speed, increasing several times its size in just a few breaths. The spiritual energy fluctuations erupting from it reached terrifying levels. Buzz, buzz. The terrifying spiritual energy fluctuations spread out, pressing down on Chen's great sun indestructible body. The golden light beneath his feet shrank rapidly, and almost 3/4 of the surrounding world was engulfed in black light. Chen's expression became extremely solemn. Supreme divine ability, 9 suns, devil abyss. Garuda laughed wildly, then let out a loud roar. 9 black suns rose, transforming into a massive black hole. The profound and dark color within the black hole became so intense it seemed as though a true black hole was forming, ready to devour everything in this world. This moment, the 9 suns devil abyss Garuda unleashed was far more powerful than a typical minor divine ability. For a 9th grade perfect realm expert, this move would be devastating. Even a lower Earth Supreme would need to be cautious and not underestimate it. Chen die. Let your great sun indestructible body become the stepping stone for my ascension. Garuda roared, his laughter echoing through the sky. At this point, victory seemed almost within his grasp. Garuda looked at Mu Chen, attempting to detect fear on his face, but what made him pause for a moment was that Mu Chen, who had been shaken by the azure stone carving, had once again calmed his expression. Even now, you're still trying to play tricks on me. You truly don't know the meaning of death. Garuda's eyes darkened as he sneered. However, Mu Chen paid no mind to his mockery. He simply exhaled deeply, his gaze fixed on the terrifying black hole, a strange expression flashing in his eyes. I didn't expect you to be able to push the power of the 9 suns to this extent, Garuda sneered. This level of power is already the peak of the great sun indestructible body. It proves that only I am qualified to advance to the immortal golden body. Already at the peak? Mu Chen murmured. Then, a smile appeared on his youthful and handsome face. He looked up at Garuda and said, I don't think so. Garuda's expression changed, about to speak, but he heard Mu Chen's voice continue. At this level, even with the help of that stone carving, you are still only at the 9 suns level. And the true limit of the great sun indestructible body may not be the 9 suns. Garuda grinned coldly. The 9 suns are not the limit? Hey, you fool. Inside the great sun indestructible body, there are 9 solar seeds. Now we've lit them all. You say this isn't the limit. Are you going to create a 10th sun for me? The moment the great sun indestructible body was fully cultivated, 9 great sun seeds would emerge within its body. This was the supreme divine ability of the great sun indestructible body. However, now, Mu Chen was saying that 9 suns were not the limit. So, where was the true limit? The 10th sun. Mu Chen looked at Garuda, a strange smile appearing on his face. He said, Isn't that the 10th sun? Garuda's gaze followed Mu Chen's, and his heart immediately trembled. Because what Mu Chen was looking at was actually the dazzling great sun behind the great sun indestructible body's head. Garuda's expression fluctuated between dark and light, and he suddenly laughed angrily. Are you really that stupid? That great sun is just the external manifestation of the spiritual energy of the great sun indestructible body. He had indeed tried to probe the great sun, but had found no results. No matter how much spiritual energy was infused, all it did was make the great sun shine brighter, with no other effect. Thus, in Garuda's view, that great sun was merely meant to maintain the imposing and mysterious appearance of the great sun indestructible body. Is that so? Mu Chen smirked strangely at Garuda's words. Then he stopped speaking and simply sat cross-legged on top of the great sun indestructible body, his hands forming a seal. Buzz. The moment his seal was completed, the golden great sun behind the great sun indestructible body emitted a humming vibration, and then billions of golden rays erupted, immediately reclaiming the world that had been dominated by the Devil Abyss. Even with the Devil Abyss's overwhelming dominance, it was unable to devour these golden rays. A terrifying spiritual energy wave surged wildly from that golden great sun. The intensity of this spiritual energy made even Garuda's scalp tingle. He exclaimed in horror, How can you possess such terrifying spiritual energy? Mu Chen calmly responded, Weren't you curious before why the result of my perfect baptism in the heavenly river was so ordinary? Garuda froze, then his face changed drastically. You infused all the power of that perfect baptism into that great sun. You're insane. To activate this 10th sun, the spiritual energy required far exceeds your imagination. Mu Chen smiled faintly and said, The perfect baptism did improve my strength, but it could never truly elevate me to the Earth Supreme. Since that's the case, why not use that little boost to gamble on whether my guess is correct? Indeed, Mu Chen was only making some guesses about the 10th sun at first. He wasn't entirely sure, but he still decided to take the leap. That Garuda's face twisted. To give up the perfect baptism for something uncertain was beyond his comprehension. But what unnerved him further was that Mu Chen's gamble had actually paid off. He had indeed activated the 10th sun. Looking at the blinding golden great sun, fear began to rise in the depths of Garuda's heart. Playing tricks to shake my resolve? However, in the end, Garuda's face contorted in a savage roar. By this point, there was no retreat for him. So even though the path ahead was certain death, he could only charge forward. He changed his seal, and the devil abyss that enveloped the heavens and earth roared downward, directly aiming to devour Mu Chen. The devil abyss howled, with countless streams of black gas like smoke, shaking the space into fragments. Mu Chen took a deep breath, his face solemn, and his hands formed another seal. Buzz buzz. 9 golden great suns slowly rose from within the great sun indestructible body and eventually detached from the divine body, floating around it. The largest golden great sun was at the center, and surrounding it, 9 smaller golden great suns revolved like stars around the moon. Buzz buzz. The rotation sped up, and in the end, the 9 golden great suns collided directly with the 10th sun. A tremendous sound erupted. An indescribable golden light spread like a tangible force. The entire world was bathed in dazzling golden light. Amid the golden light spreading across the heavens and earth, Mu Chen's indifferent voice suddenly rang out. Supreme divine ability, power of 10 suns. 10 suns divine Buddha hand. When Mu Chen's voice fell, a massive golden hand suddenly emerged from the endless golden light. This hand, etched with 10 golden solar discs, appeared as if forged from pure gold. Perfect and flawless. To look at it was to be drawn in, as if something unervingly impossible to look away from. From a distance, it seemed as though a divine hand descended from the heavens, overwhelming everything with an indescribable sense of pressure. The golden hand stretched out and effortlessly grasped the enormous demonic abyss. Then, with a delicate squeeze, bang! The demonic abyss, which had previously caused Mu Chen great caution, shattered in an instant like a fragile egg. The violent black spiritual energy erupted, but it was utterly powerless against the golden hand. Instead, it swiftly dissipated under the radiant golden light. This was a terrifying power akin to crushing everything. Puffed. As the demonic abyss shattered, Garuda coughed up a mouthful of blood. His eyes filled with horror and disbelief. He simply could not fathom that his full-force attack had been crushed so effortlessly. Escape. The thought flashed through Garuda's mind. His face turned ashen, and he was utterly disheveled. He now realized that he had lost this battle decisively. If he didn't flee immediately, death was inevitable. With this thought, Garuda stumbled backward. However, just as he began to retreat, the sky suddenly grew bright. He then saw a flawless golden hand piercing through the void, descending toward him with an almost casual gesture.